45 kilometers east of Cairo, in the middle of the Egyptian desert, something extraordinary is rising from the sand. Africa's tallest skyscraper already pierces the skyline at 394 meters. A planned 35-kilometer-long park, they're calling it Egypt's Central Park, is being carved through the landscape with a 10-kilometer Phase 1 already taking shape. A defense headquarters larger in land area than the Pentagon is already operational, and a proposed 1-kilometre-tall obelisk could one day become the tallest structure ever built by human hands. This is Egypt's new administrative capital, an estimated $58 billion bet to replace one of the oldest cities in human civilization with something built entirely from scratch. But here's the thing. As of mid-2024, roughly 1,000 to 1,500 families were actually living there, with numbers growing since, but remaining far below targets. That's in a city designed for 6.5 million people. The Egyptian pound has collapsed from around 7 to the dollar when this project launched to around 50 to 52 today. Costs have spiraled. Phase 2 has already been delayed. And the apartments being built are priced so high that the average Egyptian worker couldn't dream of affording one. So is this the future of urban planning or the most expensive ghost town ever built? To understand why Egypt would attempt something this audacious, you first need to understand Cairo. Imagine you're trying to commute across a city of nearly 20 million people. Traffic is so notorious that a journey of 15 kilometers can take 2 hours. Infrastructure that was built for a fraction of this population is being pushed far beyond its limits. Streets designed decades ago now funnel millions of vehicles through narrow corridors choked with exhaust fumes and noise. Cairo has some of the world's highest local population densities in its core areas, and it's not getting better. Egypt's population has been growing rapidly, and much of that growth has been concentrated in and around the capital. And the thing is, there's almost nowhere for Cairo to expand. To the west, you have agricultural land along the Nile, land that Egypt desperately needs to feed its people. To the east, desert. It's hemmed in by geography on one side and food security on the other. So in 2015, under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the Egyptian government announced something radical as part of its Egypt Vision 2030 program. They wouldn't try to fix Cairo. They'd build an entirely new capital. Okay, so this is where things start to get seriously ambitious. The new administrative capital, recently proposed to be renamed Memphis under a draft law from late 2025, covers approximately 700 square kilometers. For context, that's roughly twice the size of Munich. It sits 45 kilometers east of Cairo in a stretch of desert between the existing city and the Suez Canal corridor, chosen specifically because it avoids farmland and provides room for enormous expansion. The master plan is staggering. We're talking 21 residential districts designed to eventually house between 6.5 and 7 million residents. A central business district featuring a cluster of skyscrapers. A dedicated government quarter where all ministries, the parliament, the presidential palace, and the Supreme Court would relocate. A diplomatic quarter. A cultural zone featuring an opera house and theaters. A financial district spanning 320 fedans that houses the central bank and the Egyptian exchange. And that planned 35-kilometer-long Green River Park, a linear urban green space designed to connect all 20 neighborhoods, generate 300,000 jobs, and accommodate up to 370,000 visitors a day. Phase 1 of the park alone, covering 10 kilometers, carries a budget of $600 million. The whole development is being built in phases. Phase 1, which launched in 2016, covers over 40,000 fedans and contains the government district, the CBD, and initial residential zones. As of September 2025, that first phase is reported to be around 70% complete. Phase 2, originally targeted for 2024, has been pushed back to 2026. But the centerpiece, the thing that announces Egypt's ambitions to the world, is the iconic tower. Standing 394 meters tall with 77 floors, the iconic tower was completed in 2024 and immediately claimed the title of Africa's tallest building. It dominates the CBD skyline like an exclamation mark planted in the desert. The tower was constructed by China State Construction Engineering Corporation, CSCEC, reflecting a significant strategic partnership between Egypt and China that extends across much of the new capital's central business district. The building is integrated into smart city systems for energy management, security, and tenant services. It includes observation decks and ground-level retail designed to draw tourism alongside its commercial function. And the iconic tower is far from alone. The Capital Diamond Tower, the four Nile Business City Towers, each reaching 233 meters with completion targeted for 2026, and the Green River Tower at 110 meters are all under various stages of development. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping proposal is the Obelisko Capital, a planned 1-kilometre-tall obelisk-shaped megatall skyscraper. If completed by its 2030 target, it would become the tallest building on the planet. Though, given the financial realities surrounding this project, that's a very significant if. The CBD itself isn't just a cluster of towers. All 106 plots in the financial and business district have already been sold, mostly to state-owned banks. The Egyptian government is essentially using its own institutions to anchor occupancy, a strategy that says a lot about where private sector confidence actually stands. Now let's talk about what it actually takes to construct an entire city from scratch in the Egyptian desert. The environmental challenges are brutal. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 40 degrees Celsius. The terrain is flat, arid, and completely without existing infrastructure. There are no water mains, no sewage systems, no electrical grid, no roads. Everything has to be built from zero simultaneously. You're not adding to something, you're creating something where literally nothing existed. Satellite imagery from March 2025 shows the scale of acceleration. The Octagon, that massive defense headquarters modeled after but exceeding the Pentagon in scale, is clearly visible. Religious landmarks including a grand mosque and what's described as the region's largest cathedral have taken shape. Hundreds of thousands of residential units are currently under construction, targeting middle and upper middle income buyers. Major developers active in the project include Talat Mustafa Group with their Celia development, City Edge with Al Maqsad, and Misir Italia with their IL Bosco project. Housing prices in the first half of 2025 ranged from 50,000 to 70,000 Egyptian pounds per square meter. That might not sound like much in dollar terms at current exchange rates, but for ordinary Egyptians, these figures are astronomical. This is where the cracks start to show. By June 2024, approximately 1,000 to 1,500 families had moved into the new capital. The government set a target of reaching 7,000 to 8,000 families by the end of that year, with a longer-term goal of 1 million residents within 3 years. Numbers have grown since, but compare them to the 6.5 million the city is designed for, and you start to see the gulf between ambition and reality. 14 ministries and government entities had already relocated by May 2023, with tens of thousands of government employees commuting daily. President Sisi was sworn in there for his third term in April 2024. Government workers are being moved whether they like it or not. But a government quarter doesn't make a city. Cities need people who choose to be there. Families, shopkeepers, doctors, teachers, kids riding bikes to school. The fundamental problem is affordability. When the project was announced in 2015, the Egyptian pound sat at roughly 7 to the US dollar. By early 2026, it had plummeted to around 50 to 52. That's a catastrophic devaluation that has obliterated the purchasing power of ordinary Egyptians. Housing in the new capital, priced for what Egypt's planners optimistically call middle-income buyers, is simply out of reach for the majority of Cairo's population, the very people the city was supposedly built to serve. Some companies have actively delayed office projects in the new capital due to inflation and exchange rate instability. Annual maintenance costs for the city, once fully operational, are estimated at 5 to 6 billion Egyptian pounds, roughly $100 to $120 million per year. That's a significant recurring burden for a city that isn't generating anywhere near its projected economic activity yet. Critics have been vocal from the start, and their concerns haven't exactly been proven wrong.
It's a city for 6 million people, and I don't think there are 6 million people that can actually afford this city.
The most persistent criticism is that the new capital is a city built for the elite, not for Egypt. Car-centric design dominates the urban planning. Wide boulevards and dispersed districts make pedestrian movement impractical. Public transit connections between the new capital and Cairo are still being developed, leaving residents dependent on private vehicles, another expense that puts the city further out of reach for working-class Egyptians. Then there's the broader economic argument. Egypt has taken on enormous debt to finance this project. The estimated $58 billion price tag, and rising, represents a colossal investment for a country that has been negotiating multiple IMF bailout packages. Every pound spent on a glass skyscraper in the desert is a pound not spent on schools, hospitals, or housing that ordinary people can actually afford. Public sentiment is deeply divided. Some see the gleaming towers and smart city infrastructure as proof that Egypt is modernizing, competing on a global stage. Others look at the same images and see a vanity project disconnected from the needs of a population where significant poverty remains. And there's a geopolitical dimension too. CSCEC's central role in building the CBD reflects China's growing infrastructure influence across Africa and the Middle East. The financial and strategic dependencies this creates are worth watching closely. Here's where it gets complicated because the answer isn't a simple yes or no. On one hand, construction is genuinely progressing at remarkable speed. Africa's tallest skyscraper is finished. Government operations are relocating. The project is succeeding as an administrative hub, with ministries, parliament, and the presidential palace all having made the move. Real estate demand, at least from investors and speculators, remains robust. Grade A office vacancy rates in the broader Cairo market actually dropped from 10.4 to 7.4% in the first half of 2025, with the new capital driving some of that demand. Egypt's commercial property sector is projected to grow from $9.4 billion in 2024 to $15.3 billion by 2029, with the new capital as the primary engine. But a city isn't a collection of investment statistics. A city is people. And the people aren't coming. Not yet. Not in anything close to the numbers needed to justify this scale of expenditure. The phased approach does give Egypt some flexibility. They can monitor demand and adjust timelines. But the financial pressure doesn't pause between phases. Debt servicing continues. Maintenance costs accumulate. And every month the residential tower sits largely empty, the economic case weakens. The Egyptian pound's collapse has fundamentally altered the maths that this project was built on. What was planned at 7 pounds to the dollar is being delivered at around 50 to 52. That doesn't just increase costs in local currency terms. It reshapes who can afford to participate in this city entirely. There's something poetic about the proposal to rename this capital Memphis. The original Memphis, founded around 3100 BC, was the first capital of a unified Egypt. It thrived for centuries before being abandoned, its stones repurposed, its grandeur swallowed by the sand. Egypt is placing an extraordinary bet here. The new capital represents one of the largest urban construction projects anywhere on the planet. It features Africa's tallest building, a planned 35-kilometer-long park that would dwarf most urban green spaces in the world, and ambitions for a 1-kilometre-tall obelisk that would rewrite the record books. The question isn't whether Egypt can build the city. They're proving they can. The question is whether people will come. For now, Africa's tallest skyscraper stands watch over a city still waiting for its citizens. Through determination, engineering muscle, and sheer political will, Egypt has raised something extraordinary from the desert. Whether it becomes one of the world's great modern capitals or a cautionary tale about ambition outpacing reality, that story is still being written. Thanks for watching Hard Hat Industries, your source for the massive engineering and heavy iron shaping our world. If you appreciate the scale and technical complexity of these builds, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakthrough.